Good evening. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Board of Education. The board members started meeting this evening at 6 o'clock for a closed session for the discussion of 4 topics: employment of employee, collective negotiations, approval of August 17th and August 30th, as well as September 14th closed session minutes, and actual potential litigation. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mrs. Walsh, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Conroy.
Here.
Mrs. Durrani is absent. Mr. Collins?
Here.
Mr. Carlquist?
Here.
Mrs. Ostajic?
Here.
Ms. Hirsch?
Here.
Mrs. Davy?
Thank you. 6 board members present, 1 is absent. But before we start our meeting this evening, we would just like to share some news. We heard today that one of our York students passed away last evening. So we would just like to start this meeting with a moment of silence in his honor. Mike LaRude was a York senior. He was a clarinetist in the York Symphonic and Marching Bands. He was a student in York TV, which is the morning announcements program. He attended Sandburg and Hawthorne and is the stepson of Pam LaRude, who's a nurse at York in the health office. And his father is a professor of English at Elmhurst College. There are visitation announcements that will be available if anybody needs to know them, but with that, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. With that, we would like to start with our budget public hearing. And with that, we need to have another roll call to start the budget hearing. Mrs. Walsh, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Collins?
Here.
Mrs. Davy?
Present.
Ms. Ostajic?
Here.
Ms. Hirsch?
Here.
Mrs. Durrani is absent. Ms. Conroy?
Here.
Mr. Carlquist?
Present.
Thank you. Again, 6 board members present, none absent. We'll start with an overview of the fiscal year 2011 budget, and then we'll have an opportunity for any public comments as part of this public hearing, and then we'll have an adjournment and return to our regular meeting. Dr. Krizik?
Ms. Masterton, as she goes up to the podium, is just going to give a brief overview of the budget that you will be approving later on this evening during the business meeting. As required by school code, all school districts are required to approve a tentative budget by September 30th and have that submitted. So later on this evening, again, you will be taking action on the budget that Ms. Masterton has basically outlined for you over the past several months.
Thank you, Dr. Krizik. I always say that the budget process is a year-long process, that you never stop working on the budget, and this year has been especially true in the fact that we've been working significantly on this budget definitely since November, December, and moving forward from there. And so this is the culmination of a long process with a lot of discussion, a lot of debate, and a lot of hard work by the Board of Education, administration, teachers, everyone who had input into the difficult decisions that came about with this year's budget. So to start with, we'll just do a recap of everything that we've been presenting over the last few weeks. Nothing has changed in this budget, but it's always good to re-review all of that information. So to start with, this graph up here, this chart up here, shows the 9-10 budget, which was last year, the 9-10 actual expenditures, and then compares it to the 10-11 budget. And as you can see, in 9-10, we budgeted about $81,560,000 in the education fund and spent actually $82,522 because we had received some additional revenue. We are budgeting 10-11 a budget of $81,995,602, which is actually a drop of 0.64% from the actual expenditures from 9-10. In the operations and maintenance fund, we are budgeting $9,418,597. That's an increase of 0.92, almost 1%, from the actual expenditures of $9,362,079. We budgeted about $9.2 million in 9-10. In transportation, we budgeted $2.5 million, $5.5 million and spent $2.63 million. We are budgeting $2.767845, and that is a 5.14% increase. Working cash, so there is no expenditures out of, and IMRF, we're budgeting a 2.5% increase to $2,825,631. Altogether, in our operating funds, we are looking at a drop of 0.24% from our actual expenditures. Our actual expenditures in 9-10 were $97,273,433, and in 10-11 our budget is $97,037,675. Our debt service will be increasing approximately 3.87% to $9 million, almost $10 million, $9,917,507. And fire prevention and safety will have no expenditures. In capital projects, we have a significant decrease of almost 90%, actually 88.76% to $792,000 for projects that we've done this summer, which included the Madison roof and fascia and tuck pointing work at Field School. And, of course, last year we had a large number of projects, including the Emerson addition, which was earlier in the year, the stadium. We had a number of different projects, and also Madison renovation. So that added up to $7,048,803. So altogether, our total all-fund budget is $107,747,182. It's an actual 5.68 decrease from our expenditures of 9-10 of $114,239,380. Our beginning fund balances are the same as our ending fund balances for 9-10. So as of July 1st, our beginning fund balance in the education fund was $15,798,684. Operations and maintenance, $5,175,406. Debt service, $1,748,068. Transportation, $15,094. IMRF and Social Security, $407,488. Our capital projects funds has a balance of almost $3 million at $2,956,459. Our working cash has $4,411,318 in it, and our life safety fund has $1,065,334 for a total of $31,577,852. Our expected revenue for 2010-11 is as follows. In the education fund, $81,917,315. Operations and maintenance, $9,442,641. Debt service, $10,206,201. Transportation, $2,769,419. IMRF and Social Security, $2,883,435. Capital projects, interest only of about $15,000. Working cash interest only of $24,954, and life safety $3,000 in interest. So our total revenue expected is $107,262,025. On the expenditure side, We have budgeted $81,995,602 for the education fund, operations and maintenance almost $9.5 million, debt service $9.9 million, transportation $2,767,845, IMRF $2.8 million, and as we talked about before, capital projects $792,000, nothing in working cash, nothing in life safety, total of $107,747,182. So that brings us to our total budget for 2010-11. This is just a recap of our beginning fund balance, our revenue, and our expenditures, and our estimated ending fund balance. Our estimated ending fund balance is a drop of $78,227 to $15,724,57. Operations and maintenance expected to drop to about $6,000 to $5,169,460. Transportation will have a little extra, we hope, of about $1,500, and estimated ending fund balance will be $16,668. Working cash, we have no expenditures, and we do have revenue coming in, so we will have an addition of almost $25,000 to $4,436,272. In IMRF, we have an additional $57,804 for a total of $465,292. This is my famous $149 that we're always talking about whenever anybody says, do you have any extra funds for anything? I say I have $149, and that is the $149 that we have in our operating funds. So we expect our operating fund to increase to $25,808,139. For our capital budget, obviously we spent more than we took in, as one would expect, because our capital project fund has been funded from bonds sold 2-3 years ago, and so we're spending that money down. That's money that's been saved specifically for repairs, maintenance, and special projects. So it will drop $777,000 to $2,179,459. Our debt service has some crossover time in there in terms of our debt payments. Some are June 30th, some are July 1st. So our debt service is increasing to $2,036,761 by the end of the year. Fire, life, and safety, obviously with no expenditures out of there, will increase by $3,000 to $1 million, and I can't see it, $68,334, I believe is what it says. So total on our other funds will be a fund balance of $5,284,551. Combined with our operating funds, the total of all funds is $31,092,693. Our projected operating fund balance as a percent of expenditures will be 26.6%. And there. Just as a final slide, we went through all of the steps and then we highlighted each one, and here we are at the end hoping to adopt the budget no later than tonight at this business meeting. And I will be happy to take any questions.
The point of this evening is to have the formal public hearing. This board table has had a lot of discussion over pretty much the last 9 months about this budget. I would offer an opportunity if there's any additional comments that anybody here has, but I think we've had some pretty extensive conversation. Is there any board member that would like to make any question or comment? Mrs. Davey.
Ms. Masterton, I just want to thank you for your continued good work as helping us be good stewards of the public's funds that they've entrusted us with. We made a series of budget cuts. As you referenced, the process started last December, January, February, in anticipation of being able to close this budget balanced. How much did we cut? And if we wouldn't have made those cuts, where would we be right now?
Altogether, originally we had talked about $2.3 million, and it actually ended up with everything that we ended up doing about $2.7 million. Obviously, we would be in a negative balance, so our fund balance would be dropped considerably at that point. I'm not going to say that $149 is a real comfortable amount of money to have in excess of the revenue, so on the positive side, but it's much better than $2,609,851. So altogether, I think it's excellent that we were able to balance this budget with those cuts. If we hadn't made those cuts, then we would be most likely in tax anticipation warrants in May.
Thank you. And my only other comment is, as soon as we finish this one, we already are on to the next one. So with that, I have one individual who signed up to speak. I'm not sure if you're specific to the budget process. We didn't have a second sign-up sheet. So if there are any members of the public that would like to come up and make a comment relating to the budget, this would be your opportunity. And seeing none, we will adjourn the budget meeting, and we will return to our regular meeting. And with that, we first have some recognition that we need to do for a student and staff member, and then we'll have public comment following that. Dr. Krizik, would you like to give us an introduction?
At our last board meeting, we had some excellence in Elmhurst recognition when we had the J. Kyle Braid students here. We're continuing this excellence in Elmhurst recognition this evening with recognizing a staff member who has received a high honor, as well as one of our recently graduated students who was a Gold Star recipient at a national conference. And so without further ado, I'm going to make some introductions, and we'll begin with the recognition of Jeremy Thomas, who was formerly the physical education teacher at Fisher, who is now the physical education teacher at Bryan Middle School. Tonight, to recognize and present Jeremy with his award are both Jane Bailey, principal at Fisher Elementary, and from the Illinois Association of Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance for the Northeastern District, Jeff Gilbert. So could we please have them come up to recognize Jeremy Thomas, who will be recognized by IAFRD as the Illinois Elementary Teacher of the Year.
Thank you, Dr. Krizik, members of the Board of Education, Cabinet, community. It is my pleasure and privilege to welcome and recognize Mr. Jeremy Thomas, teacher extraordinaire. For 3 years, Jeremy has been pitching a fitness-focused PE program, and at Fisher, he was able to embed classroom learning in physical fitness activities. And so he was collaborating with classroom teachers in 3rd and 4th grade to embed vocabulary instruction, sight words for little kids, math facts, social studies content. They learned their the Electoral College doing jumping jacks. It was pretty amazing. And so with that, we nominated Jeremy for recognition through IAFRD, and he was awarded the Northeast District and State of Illinois Teacher of the Year. Ta-da! This year, Jeremy had an opportunity to move on to the middle school, which is an excellent opportunity for professional growth for him. It's also a great opportunity for District 205 to continue to spread the fitness-focused PE. Congratulations, Jeremy. I'm going to introduce Jeff Gilbert from the Northeast District of IAFRD.
Yes, my name is Jeff Gilbert, and I represent the state of Illinois for the Illinois Association for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance. Our organization every year takes great pride in and loves to honor their best and their brightest. And this year it's Jeremy Thomas. He submitted his application to the Northeastern District, and the Northeastern District selected him as the Elementary Teacher of the Year. That automatically kicks that application up to the state level, to the state organization awards committee, which is, I'm a member of that. And when we looked at his application, that it just jumped out of here, the innovation, the quality program that he has. So we were proud and pleased to be able to select him as the Illinois Teacher of the Year. What that does is qualify him for the Midwestern Association Teacher of the Year, and that includes candidates from Indiana, Wisconsin, Ohio, Michigan, and West Virginia. That selection process will occur in December. If Jeremy is able to move through that selection process, in March, the national organization selects one of 8. There are 8 people in the finalists, and he could be one of the 8 finalists for the National Teacher of the Year. We are proud to call him one of our own, just as you do in District 205. He's going to receive his state award in November at the State Physical Education Convention in St. Charles. Thanks for your time. We are proud and happy for Jeremy, and we wish him the best in our selection process. Congratulations.
Thank you. Mr. Gilbert could probably speak better to this, but I tried to do a little research just to understand a little bit more about this. And this award, it's awarded to outstanding individuals in the professional fields of physical health, recreation, and dance education. And the individuals are chosen for their ability to motivate the youth to participate in a lifetime of physical activity. And some of the things that they look for are innovative teaching methods, positive role models, someone that provides service to the profession, as well as somebody that tries to advance their own skills through professional development. And we are thrilled to have a teacher of your caliber, and I'm going to say my daughter's benefited. She's been one of his big fans at Conrad Fisher, but we're happy to have you as part of our district and able to share some of your skills and your motivation with the students in our district. And with that, I would love to read a proclamation. Whereas the Illinois Association for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance has awarded Jeremy Thomas the Northeastern District Elementary Teacher of the Year, and additionally, the Illinois Elementary Physical Education Teacher of the Year. And whereas these awards are presented to professionals who have modeled and dedicated themselves to the importance of health, physical education, recreation, and dance. And whereas this program motivates schools to develop high-quality curriculum which meets the needs of all school-age children, creates new techniques and teaching styles, is sensitive to student population and diversity, and promotes health and wellness. And whereas this accomplishment brings pride and prestige to Elmhurst Community Unit School District 205 and the community of Elmhurst. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education and Administration of Elmhurst Community Unit School District 205 express their congratulations for his outstanding achievement.
We are fortunate to provide such high-quality programs to our students across the district, particularly at the high school level as well. And our students demonstrate what they have learned through those high-quality programs, through their successes in competitions at the local level, at the state level, and at the national level. We are very fortunate here this evening to have one of our national gold medal winners, who was recently awarded that gold medal in the Culinary Arts Division at the Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America convention that was held in Chicago. A gold medal does not yet get Alex Tondu a role on the Food Network, but does get him cable exposure this evening. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the department chair, the FCS department chair, Wendy Albert, who will introduce Alex Tondu and share with us his accomplishment.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Albert, Department Chair for Family and Consumer Sciences. I'm also an FCCLA advisor. I'd like to thank the school board and Dr. Krizik for recognizing the accomplishments of Alex Tondu this evening. I'll give you a little bit of information about FCCLA and then speak a little bit more about the experience that Alex has had through the competition process. FCCLA, or Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America, is the nation's second largest student leadership organization with over 220,000 active members and 7,000 chapters across the United States. Students are enrolled in family and consumer science classes and have the opportunity to participate in FCCLA. Through this organization, students develop life skills, leadership skills, and real-life applications that they can take beyond the classroom. At York, FCCLA students are involved in a variety of leadership conferences, competitions throughout the year, community service projects, and other activities within the school. We have approximately, on a yearly basis, approximately 50 active student members in FCCLA. During the 2009-2010 school year, Alex Tandu was one of those students. He competed at the regional level in February, and at the regional level, the top 9 students are chosen from our region to advance to state. At the state level, there's approximately 40 to 50 student competitors, and the field of students is narrowed down from that number to 6. And the top 6 students in the state have the opportunity to participate in an intensive month-long training program, and from there, the top 3 students from that program are chosen as the Illinois Culinary Arts team that will go to nationals. And Alex went through that process and was selected as one of the top 3 students and was on the Illinois Culinary Arts team. The students are judged on everything in the competition, from safety and sanitation to professionalism to dress to, of course, their cooking, their knife skills, their mise en place skills, and, of course, their final product, tasting and, the appearance of the food. Alex and his 2 teammates competed at the National FCCLA Culinary Arts Competition on July 6th, 2010 in Chicago, Illinois. And the students, to give you an idea of what the competition is like, the students don't know the menu ahead of time. It's one of 3 menus, and they walk in and they're given their menu. They have a half hour to do their preparations, which is called mise en place, and then they have 1 hour to cook the assigned menu, and the food has to be plated out the door to the judges by the end of that time. The menu that they prepared was a Maxwell Street pork chops with roasted potatoes, tomato, asparagus, and mozzarella salad, and a fruit tart. So 3 people to prepare that entire menu in 1 hour. After the competition, the judges taste and evaluate their food, and they award points based on everything from the actual product to the teamwork and professionalism that the students showed throughout the competition. On Thursday, July 8th, the National Competition Awards ceremony took place, and Alex and his teammates were awarded a gold medal, which is based on their overall total score. They didn't just win a gold medal, though. They also are the top culinary students in the nation for FCCLA. So the Illinois team took the first place in the nation for FCCLA Culinary Arts. For placing first, the students received a number of different awards, including some scholarships to some of the top universities, such as Johnson & Wales, Culinary Institute of America, and Kendall College right here in Chicago, Illinois. And I'm so excited that Alex will be starting at Kendall next week, where he will be studying hospitality management. He's planning to finish his bachelor degree in 3.5 years and has set the lofty goal of opening his own restaurant by the age of 28. And I have no doubt that the dedication, the drive, the passion that he's shown over the last 4 years that I've had him as a student, and through the participation and everything that he's done through FCCLA, I have no doubt that those skills will carry him far as he goes on to the next stage in his educational process and his future career goals. So I want to congratulate Alex for all the hard work he's done and being the national competition winner for FCCLA. Congratulations.
Thank you. We are thrilled tonight. First of all, Alex, thank you for coming back and giving us the opportunity to share in your accomplishments. We love to celebrate the success of our students. I think a lot of school districts focus, we talk a lot about being high achieving, and for us that is a very diverse thing. There's a lot of different ways that we can find success, and the FCCLA program at our high school has been one that we've been highly successful, and we've been thrilled to see a lot of kids, and to have one of our students be the best of the best on a national level is just really amazing. So thank you for coming back and sharing this success with us. And with that, I'd like to read a proclamation. Whereas the Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America National Competition Award Program is recognized as a prestigious student recognition program in family and consumer science-related education, and whereas this program encourages excellence on the part of individual students and encourages them to pursue careers requiring specific skills, and whereas Alex Tondu, a member of the York Community High School class of 2010, earned a Star Gold Medal Award as a member of the National Culinary Arts team, therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education and Administration of Elmhurst Community School District 205 express congratulations to the student and to his teacher for their outstanding achievement. So, when we recognize students and staff, we would love to have you stay for the rest of the meeting, but we typically would give you a couple minutes to head out the back if you choose to do so. So thank you to supporters that have come here tonight, and we'll just take a couple-minute recess before we get back to the business meeting. Okay, we're going to continue on. I have one individual who is signed up for public comment. Claire Cartwright, if you would come up to the microphone and turn the microphone on. There is a little timer light, so when it hits yellow, your time is almost done. We have 3 minutes allotted for each speaker, and when it hits red, we will have to stop. So go ahead, Ms. Cartwright.
Good evening. My name is Claire Cartwright. I live at 347 North River Glen Avenue in Elmhurst. I am a taxpayer, and my family and I are a member of Elmhurst for over 60-plus years. I come before you tonight to bring to your attention for the third time I have been violated in a private policy matter. This last time is by a school board member and her staff. I first received a postcard in the mail to join in changing the ways of Deb O'Keefe Conroy as state representative, signed by Margaret. Yesterday, I received an email that comes on my BlackBerry with an invite to join Margaret for a door-to-door with Deb. Now, here is my issue. I have no children at Churchville. I do not communicate with anyone from Churchville. I have 2 families who attend the church with us, but we have no communication except hi and goodbye as we're leaving the church. My daughter has not been at Churchville since December of 2009. The only way Deb O'Keefe Conroy's campaign staff got my email addresses is from the following 2009-2010 PTA school directory. Did you hear me? I said school directory. On the first page and the second line of the booklet, it reads, "This directory is not to be used for business interests or solicitation." I believe, since I do not give my email address out as I have a Hotmail account that I used to use for garbage information, this email address is personal and confidential and given for the school to use to give me information about school activities and communication between teachers. I don't think that we should have an individual sitting in a seat that is representing our children when she cannot follow the rules that were written. I am tired of people thinking that this information is for their personal use. The first time, the current PTA president of Churchville sent me an email when I did not even know her to let me know that she started a realtor's business. Churchville school staff handled that matter. The second time, the neighborhood started a spreadsheet with all the information from the PTA booklet that says, as read previously, this directory is not to be used for business interests or solicitation. I was not even president at the time when they had a block party, which is when they gathered this information. They took the spreadsheet and sent it across the internet. Now, my daughter's name, address, phone number, and email address was available to any moron that got it. There are child molesters in my neighborhood. I contacted the police, and they handled the matter by going to their homes and indicating that they violated a Privacy Act. I request that this matter be dealt with immediately. My belief is that Deb O'Keefe Conroy should be removed from the school board immediately. Thank you for your evening. Oh, I'm going to give you one. And your staff.
Okay.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a general comment. We appreciate community members coming and sharing their comments. We don't respond to comments that are not specifically related to the agenda at the board table, so that people preparing for these meetings have the benefit of knowing what we're going to be discussing. With that, we will move on to the superintendent's communication. We will start with the 2009-2010 summer school report.
Last year at this time, Dr. Sullivan had been on board for less than 2 months, or a little over 2 months, and was asked to put together a summer school report on a program that she did not put together or had any input into designing. Following her report, as you recall, the idea of a survey was suggested in order to identify better ways of meeting the needs of our students, considering a variety of issues, including but not limited to fiscal matters and fiscal matters. So tonight, she's here with the 2010 summer school report, outlining for you what the activities were this past year, giving you a report on those, with recommendations to be at a subsequent board meeting and not at this evening. So, Dr. Sullivan, it's all yours.
Okay. She stole a little bit of my thunder on my first slide. I just wanted to recap a little bit about last year. In last year's report, one of the things that we talked about was seeing this trend over the last several years of some declining enrollment and some significant difficulties maintaining any kind of budget neutrality. So that was the impetus last year for having some discussion about looking at what we did for summer programming. We did do an extensive parent survey last year in the fall of 2009 to get feedback about our programs after my visit with you here at the board meeting that time. We did receive over 900 responses to our survey. Most of them were at the elementary and middle school for that particular survey, which was around 500 responses. We received about 280 responses for the high school survey and 164 for the instrumental summer program survey that we did last year. And one of the things we did do was investigate some other possible programming options. We ended with recommending the idea of allowing some outside agencies to provide summer programming options for us. We looked at implementing as many cost-cutting measures as we could where possible. We did decide to maintain the 2009 tuition levels, which had been maintained for a number of years. I think Ellen and I looked 4 years at least. We hadn't done anything with tuition in terms of raising those costs. We looked at, revising some course offerings at York, and we talked about changing the model for the instrumental music program. So that was jogging your memory to last year. So what we did do this summer was we did have the College of DuPage came in to offer their 2010 summer enrichment classes. They provided 42 different options for families, out of which only 15 classes really had enough enrollment to run. It was a 2-week session that ran in June, and a total of 159 students participated. I was frankly disappointed that we didn't get more students in that, because when I looked at the offerings, it looked to me like exactly what parents said on the survey they wanted, but yet we didn't get a huge number of students enrolled. National Louis University Worlds of Wisdom and Wonder program came in, which is a student for academically talented and gifted students. They offered 73 sessions over a 2-week period in June and July. Students could participate in 3 sessions per day. That's how they worked that. We did have a total of 276 students participate in that. National Louis tells us that we were their second highest attendance in the Chicagoland area. They were very pleased with what happened here. When I totaled those together, I wasn't as disappointed after all, because together we had 435 students enrolled through both of those programs, and that compared to 423 that were enrolled in what we did as a elementary middle school program as a district. So it helped when I added those together. The instrumental music program, we totally did a new structure this year with incoming 5th and 6th graders attending morning sessions at Sandburg, which we ended up running it over a 5-week period, trying to make it less maybe intense, because one of the criticisms was, they felt if they had to miss, for a vacation or whatever, it wasn't a significant, they were missing too much to enroll. And then we looked at doing the 7th and 8th grade students doing evening sessions at York and having a little bit more of a connection with the high school. That program ran from June 14th to July 22nd, and this we saw a very nice increase. We saw an increase of 86 students from the previous year, so we had 241 students participate this year in that particular program, so we were very pleased with the outcome of that. The York academic program was the standard 6 weeks from July 14th to June 14th to July 2nd. There were 23 different classes offered. 19 had enough enrollment to run. A total of 33 tuition-based sections were run. We had 807 tuition semester registrations received, and that was an increase of about 59 over the previous year. Of those, 55 students were looking for credit recovery for a failed class, and the rest were looking for, taking some classes and getting some of those credits out of the way. Athletic camps were offered again for elementary, middle, high school in a broad range of sports. We had a total of over 1,500 students enrolled in multiple camps. This was a little bit down from 2009. And the York Summer Freshman Cohort Program. This year they offered students who were eligible for that program the opportunity to take 2 classes tuition-free. One was the Earth Science class, and one was a Survey of Technology and Research, which is the computer concepts requirement. We did provide transportation, and we did have 76 students participate in the program. Fisher and Churchville also offered summer academies. They had 4-week half-day programs for students who were struggling academically. The focus of those programs were to further develop literacy and math skills. We provided transportation. All of those costs were paid out of Title I and Title III funds. And we never reported on extended school year like it didn't exist, but we do have other students who come students who are eligible under IDEA for extended school year. We offer a program every summer, so we thought we should probably include it in what we share with you. That program ran from June 14th to July 15th. It was housed at Hawthorne, and we had 130 students that were served in that particular program this summer. So our recommendations for 2011, which are just for you to chew on, as Dr. Krizik said, we won't ask for any action until the next board meeting, but we would like to make sure we take some action so we can plan, in advance. It takes some lead time, especially when we're working with some of the outside agencies, to get some of this on the books. We would like to continue to support having College of DuPage and National Louis come in to provide some summer classes at the elementary and middle school population. The economics of our decision from last year have not changed. In terms of our cost, actually we'll have increased costs for next year. So we think that is a way that we can still offer some programming for families, and in fact more families took us up on it this last year than they did the previous year. We would obviously continue some of the same cost-cutting measures put in place and look for more if we can find them. I think we need to consider a tuition increase, a modest, we hope, for district-sponsored tuition programs to recoup some of our increasing costs. We will have increasing labor costs, and we've looked at that. We either have to know that we're going to, not be able to recoup that, and be okay with that, or decide that we're going to look at increasing our tuition costs a little bit. Continue to offer the instrumental music program using the same format that we put in place this year. That was, seemed to be very well received. Investigate the feasibility of expanding York's academic offerings to include dual credit coursework through College of DuPage. They have met with us, asked to meet with us. Diana Smith and I met with them about the feasibility of that. They are looking to now offer some dual credit classes in the summer, which they have not done previously, and they're interested in York being one of the sites for that, and we are certainly interested in trying to pursue what that might look like. Again, utilize Title I and Title III funds when they're available to provide some additional programming for our students who are eligible at those schools. And then I have revisited the need for the Freshman Summer Academy, and the reason I put this on is that the original intent of that program, or what was brought to the board originally, I think in 2008, was a very different program than what we ended up offering this past year. Because of the development of the program during the academic year, the summer piece changed, and I just felt it important that we at least have some discussion with you and hear some of your thoughts about how you might want to continue that, or whether you would want to continue that the way that it was done this past summer. And I think that's, do I have one? That's it. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. We appreciate you putting together this summary. Are there any board questions or comments, Mrs. Davey?
I really appreciate that you've given us the total picture, including everything that's going on in the summer, including the extended school year. I think it gives us a better idea of all the activity. Then I think every program number ends in a bracketed red, which means we're spending money. And that isn't a bad thing necessarily, because if we feel like that the money spent is an investment in our students and we can capture that, then it's probably money well spent. But I guess a couple of questions. Have you analyzed if you feel, do we have a track record on let's say the academy. They're 2 years into York now. Actually, they're juniors this year, right? They were the first year of the academy were incoming freshmen, so now they're juniors.
Yes. Yes.
So have we looked at, and I realize it's hard to quantify, but have we looked if there's been an impact on that academy in those students as now they're progressing through York? I guess. I'd like to know how you're looking at that data, and then I have a follow-up, but go ahead if you want to answer.
Well, I know that I believe that there was a report that was provided by York January of last year, I think, on students that had been in subsequent programs, but that would certainly be something that we could do to update that in terms of what that would look like. The other issue is that the program has substantially, before it was really a summer only, and as of this past year, it's changed substantially. So we're really looking at a whole different program for those students.
And Ms. Masterton, I think this question is for you. When this budget we're ready to adopt, considering that all these numbers for summer school added up to a red number of around $100,000, is that correct? Okay. Is that number budgeted then in this new budget for, we're anticipating that we're going to lose that amount of money, as we go forward, which will impact next summer school?
It's budgeted in we haven't, it's budgeted in terms of the fact that the monies that we lost in how do I put this? The revenue is generally received in the prior year, okay, and then the actual expenditures, half of them or a part of them will be in the prior year, and the remainder of them will be in this fiscal year. And then the same thing applies to the next time. So there's usually kind of a wash in there in terms of the tuition side of it. As far as the buildings and grounds side of it, which is the cost of utilities, cost of labor, and all of that, it's kind of immersed into the operations and maintenance budget. But obviously, in a climate where we're concerned about finances, those costs can be fairly excessive. The utilities in particular, because of York being such a huge building and a lot of programs going on and the AC is on all the time, for there, it adds up, and that's a big cost item for us. But that's kind of absorbed in Mr. Shu's budget, and it is budgeted for. Doesn't mean that I wouldn't like to see some additional savings come out some way or other in terms of scheduling or way we can do this, to help out with that. And certainly, we haven't raised tuition in quite a while. For summer programs, and we've been very strict with them in terms, particularly in the last year or two, in terms of what they can purchase with summer school funds, and that's helped a little bit, but we're still running in the red.
So then my follow-up is, in this EPIRT process that's currently going on, is an evaluation of summer school one of the EPIRT committees? Because that would address some of what we're talking about, looking at data, to get effectiveness of a program.
Yes, in fact, our new principal, Amy Reed, and Marion Kalis are the facilitators on that committee. I think Amy might bring, coming from such a large school district in Schaumburg that has a substantial summers program, she might bring a different perspective as to what we're doing. And so, yes, it's going to be reviewed.
Mr. Kralquist.
Dr. Sullivan, again, thank you for the report, and thank you on behalf of the board to the entire staff, administratively, instructional staff, and the like, and custodian staff that really made all the summer programs successful. I agree that summer school should be, like all other programs, a part of the EPIRT process. There should be no sacred cows. But at the same time, and I also agree that, as you mentioned, Ms. Masterton, that we need to continue to look for ways to have some savings, to economize, or to look at potentially better matching tuition to the expenses of the respective programs. But with all that having been said, I think it's also important for us to recognize as a district, for $100,000 roughly of incremental expense versus the $107 million total budget that we will be approving later this evening, it's a rather negligible, very minor expense for the incredible value that I believe our students and our community receives from the programs and the supplemental offerings that come from summer school. We celebrate improvements in test scores. We like to recognize our students at board meetings for their accomplishments in extracurricular activities, be it in music, as well as athletics and FCCA and so forth. And I don't think our students' exceptional performance happens because they wouldn't achieve the same levels by taking the summers off, nor necessarily would they? Or would our students be as prepared to enter school as well as they do in the fall if it weren't for some of the offerings that they have? So I thank you. And again, while I think we need to always examine all elements of our budget and look for ways to economize and manage our costs and keep revenues in alignment as best as possible, I would urge you and the team to continue to find ways to where the demand and the needs of students are, to expand our offerings, to continue to have good alignment between what the community's demands are for offerings, course offerings, and continue on this journey. I'd like to be able to, in our quest for top school district honors and recognition nationally, to have our summer school program be one important element of that whole thing. So again, thank you very much.
Mr. Collins.
I have 4 or 5, so please bear with me. Dr. Sullivan, in your recommendations, you asked the board that we may want to take a fresh look at the Freshman Summer Academy now that we have the cohort program in place. Exactly what kind of discussion are you looking for? What kind of information would be useful to you?
Well, I just really felt that the original proposal that came to you for approval was for something vastly different than what we did last summer. And what we did last summer was a result of what changed during the school year. So it wasn't that we just, decided to do something differently. It just was an evolution of what happened with developing a program that was going to happen within the academic year. So I really just felt we needed to come back and just revisit and hear from you, what your thoughts were about continuing to support, those students in that way during the summer. We essentially let them take a couple, 2 classes tuition free that other students were paying tuition for. And we ended up, I think, getting 76 students, which are, pretty close to the number that we got even during the when we had the regular program. The same kind of number, I think, before was maybe close to 80, but it wasn't that different. So I just felt that I didn't want to, wanted to be above board about what was happening during that summer and get your feelings about that. We could certainly, sit down and talk with York and say, now knowing what we've put together this past year, whether or not that's the same kind of opportunity that they would want for those students or whether there's something different. And then I can bring that, back to you for, some discussion.
Is there? I think that would be a worthwhile discussion to have with York. And as far as I'm concerned, I'd love to hear the results of that discussion so that we can have a meaningful discussion about what the options are. And I think summer school is incredibly valuable, and it has a long history in this district. I think we should certainly continue it. But I think we need to try to get better at it every year. So, I mean, that's my feeling. If anybody else has any other feelings about.
Dr. Krizik.
I just want to make a comment to just elaborate on something Dr. Sullivan shared. By offering the tuition-free courses last year, that was really in response to parents' concerns about not knowing their child's eligibility for a program until what they thought was much later in the impact. And so the offer of the tuition-free, coursework was really, at that point in time, a solution to an identified problem at that point in time. We're not in the same communication mode at this point in time because Diana Smith and the middle school principals are being much more proactive with communicating with families about the cohort program and what it will offer to students as incoming freshmen for those that are eligible. So the situation has also changed greatly. And as Dr. Sullivan has indicated, the first cohort class put together was more, I'll call it remedial in nature, providing that augmented math and reading support. This was having students have access to earth science as well as a variation of the computer concepts class. So the issues are very different. Certainly, Dr. Sullivan will come back with more information, but I wanted to clarify that by offering the tuition at no cost to parents was in some ways a solution at the moment, a goodwill gesture, so to speak. And that, again, this communication scenario has completely changed for this year. And I want to just indicate how much more proactive staff is being with communicating with families this year.
Okay.
Mrs. Davy, are you responding to the question? Okay.
I guess I'm stunned that what I think I heard you say is we didn't have a freshman academy for remedial reasons this year because I never knew that. It was never brought to the board's attention that the freshman academy changed to just being able to offer 2 free summer school classes that were the same ones other students were taking. So I'm very disappointed to hear that because my understanding of that academy was it was targeting students for remedial purposes that we could offer them something, and our board had decided it was worth the investment, and we knew it was going to have a cost to it, but for the remedial purposes it was worth it to help these students going into York. So I didn't know it changed this summer, and I'm very disappointed to hear that. So I think it's worth having further conversations.
I guess I just would make one additional point. Dr. Krizik, you talked about communication strategy on this freshman cohort program. If this tuition-free thing was a transition for those couple of classes, I just think that parents coming in should really understand that that's not part of the program. Because that's, only a one-year precedent, but that is how this was laid out the first year.
Well, first I'm going to say there are more than 76 students that are currently in the freshman cohort. There is approximately, I think, 139 students thereabouts. So not every student who was in the cohort participated in the summer program. Because there was the double block of English, and only the double block of English really changed everything, there was a concern that students would only have one elective available to themselves. And so it doesn't mean that there can't be those course offerings. It is that the budget for the cohort program changed dramatically with the redesign of the program. And certainly we are, anticipating different outcomes as a result of a more comprehensive year-long program versus an academy summer program. That was one of the impetuses for the redesign of the program. So I believe that some of the communication may have said, this year, it wasn't a permanent offering to all families. And I think that's why Dr. Sullivan is bringing it back to your attention in terms of, as you look at all of your expenses, where is money best allocated as it relates to, improving instructional outcomes for students. And I think that's just why she's bringing it to your attention. There was communication to families about what the cohort program did and did not offer. And so, Mrs. Davey, whether or not that was also shared with the board, I can't exactly recall, but it would have been only in a written format. It would not have been in any other format. I will say that Dr. Sullivan's work with York on a new course approval process that has multiple layers will prevent something like this from happening in the future, where there will be substantive changes to programs without board awareness. So I think that level of rigor and accountability will be put in place for this year. And so you won't have that perception of not being aware.
Thank you. That was number one. Number two, last summer you did a survey, as you pointed out, and that survey, as I read the responses, clearly the part of the community that responded to that survey wanted the district to provide more academically oriented classes at the elementary level. And you did that this year through the College of DuPage. But the enrollment was not the spike in enrollment that you would anticipate seeing from the results in that survey. Is there any explanation? I can certainly offer none.
Well, I don't know. The tuition was slightly higher, but that didn't. The tuition for the National Lewis program was significantly higher, and we had a very large turnout for that. So, I don't know. I don't know. One, is it new and we didn't get the word out, well enough? I don't know. I had the same surprise when I looked at the list. I thought this is exactly what families said they wanted. But yet we didn't see the enrollment.
Can I, in our quest to become better every year, can I suggest that perhaps we have another electronic survey that goes out to the community, but also has a different set of questions for the parents whose children did participate in that summer school, to get their reactions of the quality of courses offered, the price, and if they felt they got their money's worth. Which I think would give us perhaps some indication as to the popularity of those courses when they're offered next summer.
We can do that.
Thank you. 3, I looked through the York course offering sheet, and I don't have a high schooler, so please educate me in this. The course offerings, I guess you can divide up into 2 or 3 categories. One would be credit recovery courses, and in non-education speak, I guess that I failed the course and I'm taking it a second time. Versus, I look at some other high schools' course offerings, and they seem to be dominated by academically enriching course offerings. In other words, somebody that is in a course sequence, and I'm just going to use math because it's all laid out very easily. Somebody who starts in Algebra 9, and would be then next logical step is Geometry 10. But in fact, they've excelled at Algebra 9 and would like to move up a sequence into Geometry 10H the next year, their sophomore year, or sophomore advanced algebra and trig. Do we offer classes, can we offer classes that, using that example and then expanding upon it, would allow kids to academically challenge themselves, and for the academically ambitious, move up in sequence from what might be a regular sequence to an honor sequence, or from an honor sequence to an AP sequence, for those kids that would want to? And can we, again, survey to see what the demand for that would be?
Can we do that? I believe that doing a survey to find out whether we have families and students interested would be a good thing to do. It is a trend. I think the original concept of summer school was a lot of credit recovery for many, many years. I think the trend that you're seeing in higher performing districts is to do exactly what you're talking about. They're finding other ways to do credit recovery, and they're really looking at, can they offer, some very high level enriched classes to students who are willing to, and that's working really hard, because to do some of those courses over the summer might mean that that's the only thing they can take, and it's a number of hours, 4 hours a day, trying to get that done. But that is the trend. I think talking to College of DuPage about dual credit courses that we can offer is another option for us to look at as a way for students to get college credit during the summer school.
And I'm sorry for interrupting, but I would assume that those courses are really targeted at juniors and seniors, or maybe just seniors.
They are. There are some new guidelines about who can actually enroll in dual credit. You can have some sophomores, but they have to meet some pretty stringent criteria in order to do that. But I think we should pursue that and see what those are. But I don't disagree that we shouldn't look at what other ways we can offer to provide some courses that could help challenge our students so that they can move into some higher level courses if that's what they're wanting to do.
It sounds like we should be on a dual path there, the dual credit courses for the juniors and seniors, and these what I'll call academically ambitious courses for kids that want to move up in sequence for the freshmen and sophomores. Some
districts I know are providing what they might call a bridge class, where it's just,
exactly.
That might not necessarily be a full credit for one of their courses, but it's a way for kids to go from one class up to another, to skip a level. And those are some things that we can talk with York about.
Okay. And finally, I'm always curious to see what the most popular course is. And by far and away, that was computer concepts, which, from having the opportunity to speak to many York students, my understanding is some of them feel that is not the most rigorous or enriching class in the offering booklet. I'm just curious how long that class has been around.
I'm not sure if I know how long the class has been around. I think it's been a requirement since the early 90s as a high school graduation requirement.
And when was the last time that course has been undergone a significant rewriting?
I'm not sure how significant the rewrite was, but whenever Microsoft Office has updated, they've had to update for Microsoft Office.
All right, I'm going to assume that's not that significant. Could it be possible that in those 10 years, kids have had more exposure to computers at a younger age? And I've also had the opportunity to talk to a lot of middle schoolers who also think that their computer class could be more rigorous and they could get more from it. Do you think that we should take a look as our children become more sophisticated because they've been exposed to computers for more years of their lives in 2010 versus what they were exposed to in 1990? 20 years is a long time. To take a look at even perhaps moving that computer concepts class into the middle school and having the high school determine what skills they expect of an incoming freshman in computer literacy and educating our kids, because I think a lot of them might come into middle school with those skills. Can we look into doing that?
We certainly can. I think that because of the dollars that the board has spent on technology in the last several years, where we've been able to get computers at the elementary level, we now actually have students who, have had more exposure than they had even, I'm just thinking, we've talked about this at the middle school level, already looking. I know that Kathy Baker has been working with the middle school teachers this year about upgrading their curriculum, because now students are coming in with more skills, and I think there's still a lot of room for improvement. The other reason I think that that's something for us to consider is also that we're expecting an 8th grade technology assessment that's coming through nationally through NAEP and some other organizations to happen anyway. So we're going to be held, our 8th graders are going to be held accountable for some technology skills. That's, I believe, 2013 they're talking about, right, David? Yeah. So I think that is something that we should absolutely consider taking a look at.
I mean, I kind of had in mind this year.
Well, yeah, I thought that you did. But I think that that's something that it has some implications that we'd have to be aware of. But I think that you'll also see that there are some other districts that are making computer literacy a requirement in middle school. I don't know that there are that many, and I will be happy to survey my Chicagoland colleagues on this, but I don't believe that there are that many that have a high school requirement remaining. They still offer courses that students can take, but it's not necessarily a high school requirement.
Okay. I mean, is that something that, am I the only one with that concern? Is there more concern than that on the board?
Ms. Hirsch?
I believe my current senior found the time during her summer school class to email her mother, which I find highly unusual. So I do think that there is an opportunity to increase the rigor in that particular course.
I mean, is this something that's feasible to come back later this year with an assessment of what we're doing? Or, I mean, early next calendar year?
We'll work on that, yes.
That?
You're done, Ms. Hirsch.
I want to piggyback on just one of Mr. Collins' statements, and that was kind of defining the categories for the high school, summer school. One is the credit recovery, and looking to do, augmentation of where students are and to offer the growth. But having a couple of kids in high school, one of the other key things that has been tradition in Elmhurst is that York is a relatively large building for these students coming from our middle schools, and traditionally parents have used summer school as an opportunity to have their students attend York the summer before they go in and acclimate to the building, find their way around. And traditionally, when speech was still a requirement, the two classes that the majority of students took, or at least from the anecdotal evidence, was computer concepts, because it's a requirement in high school, and because speech was a requirement in high school. So if you were to go back many years, the attendance numbers in those two courses were always very high, because it serviced that group of students whose families chose to have their students get acclimated to York ahead of going in August as an incoming freshman. I do think that there's value in offering students an opportunity to get acclimated to the building and to knock off one or two of their requirements that might not, that fit well into a summer school type format. Not every class is going to fit well into a summer school format. I appreciate that. But I do think that is one category in terms of taking these youth and getting them acclimated to this new facility and this new environment. I think it does offer an opportunity to provide some value. So I would encourage us to continue offering classes that do meet those requirements. I do have two other questions, actually. And while I agree with Mr. Carlquist that the cost of $100,000 compared to our overall district budget might not seem like, the biggest number that we have to crack, but there definitely is a $100,000 expense that's there. And I had a question. I believe at the end, or our recommendations that we approved for this past summer, we heard from the survey and we heard from parents that transportation was not one of the deciding factors in attendance and enrollment in summer school. But we did choose to offer transportation in a couple of programs. Could you give us some information about that? And it definitely affects our overall expenditures.
Well, the only programs that we did were our Title I and Title III programs at Fisher and Churchville, and that was fully paid for through those grant funds. So there wasn't an expense to the district in terms of that. And the rationale for that was often those are the students who can't get to school, and if we don't offer transportation, we don't have students. So and I think that similar philosophy, I think that previously we had offered transportation as part of the freshman academy. That's the only other program. So for those cohort classes, transportation had been promised to those families, and so that was the only other program that we offered transportation.
I guess I'll add a question to the survey that Mr. Collins would like to distribute to those families. I think it's a confusing message that some students who might have taken a summer school course and paid tuition for it were not offered transportation, and yet there were students who were. And I think, number one, from a cost management perspective, we should look closely as to whether or not that really affected their ability to participate in the course. And number two, I think that we should send a consistent message. And based on the information that I think that you were able to provide, the cost was about $10,000 to provide transportation to those students. And if it could be a 10% reduction in our red number, every reduction in that red number, I personally think is helpful. The other question I had related to budget was if we were able to assess the operations expenses for offering to these outside agencies. What are our operational costs for opening up our building, Sandberg and Bryan? I don't know that I consistently
I thought I
understand.
included that.
Okay, I must have missed it. I apologize.
Yeah, I thought and if I didn't, I will. Though if I didn't, I have that information. And that was one of the things that we really looked at. Mr. Shu really, if he's still here, there he is back there, really helped us out, really trying to nail down a little bit more what exactly it costs us for utilities for a day, for custodial costs for a day, and he was able to break that down for me by building. So I actually feel more comfortable about those costs here than I did in the past. But they're higher. You'll see that they're higher than if you go back and look at what they were in the past. So in some cases where we thought we were going to, kind of squeak by, those operational costs were really higher. And we just have to know that opening a building is going to cost us. Yeah, so even offering those other programs, even offering what we said for Title I and Title III has a cost to us, even though everything else is paid for by those grants. But that would be one of those ones that I would really argue that that it's important to bear those costs for those particular students. But we have to be aware of what those costs are.
One final question, and I guess this is a request. In looking through the athletic program that was offered over the summer, it's phenomenal participation. There's a lot of students that participate in various programs and at various costs. But I'd like to learn a little bit more about the rationale in terms of the age levels at which we offer and the types of programs that we offer during the summer programs. If I look, I think there's one program that starts in first grade, inviting first graders into the high school, all the way up through some programs are just targeted at 6 through 12. Some programs feed into a program that we offer at the high school and within the district, and then there are other programs that are there that don't, I think I might be wrong on that, but that don't necessarily fit into a program that we have at the high school. I could be incorrect on that, but I'd like to see as part of that EPIRT process some rationale and some justification for offering, for how we decide what activities to offer at what levels, at what ages, those kind of things, because that's another area in terms of expenses where, unfortunately, we're operating in the red. And while I think they're very valuable programs, we want to try to tighten that up a little bit.
I don't know the answer to that. I will ask Mr. Rudder those questions.
A couple questions. You talked a little bit about the utilities. So just to, when you look at the cost that we've invested in most of these programs, it's substantially less than the cost of opening the building. So we're essentially covering all of our teachers' costs, material costs. It's really that the cost of running these buildings. So I guess my first question is, if we didn't offer these programs, would those costs go away, down to zero?
Well, I have to ask Mr. Shu that, which I think the answer is no, not totally, but in some cases, yes. An example being if we're not using the A wing, right, and it's not air conditioned, those costs, significantly drop. I mean, I now know, based upon what he's given me, what the most cost-efficient building to be in, and some of those things that I didn't know before. So, I mean, we could probably look at that, but I don't think it doesn't absolutely totally eliminate everything, but there's an absolute cost, especially in the bigger buildings like York. You just can't get around it. More efficient if we have many programs going on at the same time. That's more efficient. But if we only have a couple classes running at a certain time of day and we have to air condition the whole wing for that, it's costly.
I could just add that we did have some requests for some C-wing classrooms to be run in the afternoon and also in the morning. And as soon as we saw it, we said, you know what, if you can at all avoid it, try to keep them all together, because we don't want to have to air condition a whole building. And in fact, I think the one in the afternoon that was scheduled, no one wanted to go to it, and the other one, they just moved over. So, it does become an issue. Sometimes it's just simply because the facility needs and requires it. It may be science labs, it may be other things where they just need that area, but it's something that we have to probably educate people on as they're trying to plan their programs over the cost of how much it's going to be, and add it into their budgets, too.
Okay, one other related utility question. The outside tuition-based programs, the organizations collect the tuition and they cover their own costs. Because they're using our facility, are they providing anything to cover the cost of that? Or is that something that's included in here somewhere? Or, I mean, that if we're associating these types of costs to the other programs, we should probably make sure that we have good visibility to that one too, just so everybody's on the same baseline.
Right. The one issue would be like at where we're overlapping. So if we're offering instrumental music at Sandburg and we happen to have National Louis there at Sandburg at the same time, we optimize, those costs. But otherwise, you're right. It's the same issue.
So just overall, I mean, I'm in support of offering these programs. I think it's worthy to note that the biggest investment that we have in our summer program is the mandated program, of which we get a very small dollar of reimbursement. So that's something that we can't control at all. And it's not anything that's tuition-based. It's something we're obligated to perform. So just to note that is our biggest summer investment that we have. And I'm going to agree with a couple of the comments that Mr. Collins made. I think it's interesting to note that out of the elementary programs, there was much heavier participation in the enrichment programs as opposed to the other programs. And, that we may have heard something in our survey, but that was a clear message as far as participation level. So hearing that feedback will be interesting. And if you took that to the high school and offered more enriched programs there, would that improve the high school program? So I think that is something that we should explore. And I think from the computer concepts perspective, our kids, as you've said, we made big investments in technology. The kids are introduced to many more things. To have this second class in high school when, probably a lot of it's already introduced at the elementary level. If you look at, ask the high school kids what their biggest frustration, it's making the choice. We have a rich curriculum there, and they only have so many hours in the day. So if you could take that one out and offer them a slot to take something else, I'm sure a lot of the kids would appreciate that. And I think that was my last comment. So are there any other board member comments or questions? Dr. Krizik, Dr. Sullivan, again, thank you. We appreciate your bringing this information back. Even though conversation was a little bit of a struggle on the freshman program, we appreciate your making us aware of that, just so that we understand, as Mrs. Davy said, that wasn't a program that the board had felt was important enough to make the investment in. So when things like that are changing, I also think it's really important as we're making these investments that we can understand what the impact is and, make those adjustments and say, okay, this isn't paying off the way we thought it would. To Dr. Krizik's point, we have to continue to reallocate our resources, but it's really good to have that visibility. So thank you. We only have one action item, approval of, we do have one additional superintendent's communication item. Dr. Krizik's going to give us some updates.
We learned in the past week about some additional recognitions that either individual staff members have received or we as a school district received, and I wanted to use this evening to highlight those and comment on those. The first is for the 9th consecutive year, we have received the School Search Bright A Plus Award. It was based on our 2009 school report card data. We were one of 57 school districts out of 869 in the state of Illinois to receive this award, placing us among the top 5% of the school districts in the state. This is an independent award that is given out by an independent company, again, utilizing our 2009 report card data. The criterion for unit districts, high school and unit districts, is based on the academic performance of an ACT score of 23.1 or above. In this past year, the class of 2010 scored 24.1, which was 1 point higher than the minimum criteria for this award. That was one. The second was as you know, we belong to the Illinois chapter of the National School Public Relations Associations, or INSPRA. This past Friday, they presented 114 awards to 34 school districts for those individuals or school districts that produced highly professional, effective communication materials during the 2009-2010 school year. It is an annual opportunity for school districts to submit communication projects to a panel of experts. Most of the judges come from out of state, including from Ohio, Tennessee, Missouri, Iowa, Kansas, and Wisconsin, and Kentucky. So different sets of lenses and eyes are looking at the communication endeavors of Illinois school districts. I'm honored to share with you that Malia Smith, who came to us from District 203, and as a District 203 staff member, was the recipient of 3 awards of merit in the areas of special purpose, annual reporting, and writing, which means when she's here in District 205, we expect that to be 6 awards of merit for the upcoming school year. So we're going to raise the bar just a little bit. But we're very proud of her, and it just speaks highly to her professionalism. And just in the past few months, we've just seen such great examples of her writing and her communication attempts. So we're very fortunate to be the recipient of someone who has also been recognized by their peers. So I think that's important. Internally, both Kathy Schrader and former Director of Communications Karen Geddes received an award of merit for the newly redesigned District 205 website. So we also, as a district, achieved some recognition. And last but not least, 3M bestows a Star in the Classroom Award. This year, York High School Business Department Chair Jim Burrell was recognized for his effective implementation of Econ Illinois programs in the classroom, helping students learn more about our economy, their roles as workers, consumers, investors, and voting citizens. He will be honored with a 3M Star in the Classroom Award and presented with a small monetary award on October 26th during a special luncheon at the Union League Club. So this program is administered by the Illinois Councils on Economic Education, and I believe he is the second York staff member to have achieved such an award. So again, this evening we recognize Jeremy Thomas. We had a student that exemplifies the high quality of programming at the FCS program. And again, just last week we had the J. Cal Braid. So as Mrs. Osijek indicated earlier, the measures of our success are not only in the achievement test scores, but in the performances of our students in different venues, as well as the recognitions our staff receive from their peers for their contributions. So I just thought it was important to share some more excellence in Elmhurst with us this evening.
That's terrific. Thank you very much for sharing that news with us. Our next item we have is the approval of the July 20th, August 17th, and August 30th, as well as September 14th minutes. Are there any adjustments or corrections to those minutes as presented? Seeing none, they are approved as presented. We have next the superintendent's consent agenda. Are there any items any board members would like removed for discussion? Okay, seeing none, I will accept a motion. Mrs. Davy?
I move for the approval of the superintendent's consent agenda, which includes items A through H.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Mrs. Davy, seconded by Mr. Carlquist. Do we have any money things in here? Yeah. Let's call the roll, please, Mrs. Walsh.
Mrs. Davy?
Yes.
Mr. Carlquist?
Yes.
Ms. Hirsch?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mrs. Osijek?
Yes.
Ms. Conroy? Mrs. Droney is absent.
Thank you. There are 6 ayes, no nays, 1 absent. That motion carries. We have an action item from the superintendent's agenda, and that is the approval of the resolution adopting the budget for fiscal year 2010-2011. Can I have a motion? Mrs. Davy.
I move that the Board of Education adopt the budget for fiscal 2010-11 as recommended, and that the President and Secretary be authorized to enact the resolution and certificate of authorization.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Mrs. Conroy. Any board discussion? Mr. Carlquist?
Just a couple of brief comments and then a question for Ms. Masterton. I mean, we've been through this again. We've praised the administration for their, I'll say, leadership in helping the board work through this process to get to a point with a balanced budget. So thank you again to the administration. But I also like to use this as an opportunity to say thanks to 2 other important constituencies. One is, I would say, this is perhaps more a bit of a thanks in advance to the staff across the district, which has to play a very important role in every fiscal year of bringing a budget and the expenditures in line with the budget, and finding ways to reduce costs and to help us be able to do just what we're doing, which is be able to implement and execute against a budget that has nearly 6% in reductions. And then secondly, of course, is to the public and to the families of 205, which were participants in this process back to the beginning, that gave us input, gave us ideas, and helped shape and arrive at the nearly 6% of reductions. But at the same time, I think we also need to recognize that we're still approving a budget that has $107 million of expenditures, and that is a substantial commitment of resources, of which we know predominantly comes from property taxes, comes from the taxpayers in Elmhurst. And so I think that's another place that I think it's appropriate as a Board of Education to say thank you, is thank you to the public that supports such a wonderful school district with their hard-earned and shared tax dollars. Of course, it's our responsibility to continue to have good stewardship over the public resources and to deliver value to all the stakeholders in the community. And as we always talk about, continue on our journey of continuous improvement to deliver more and more value. Now, my question, Ms. Masterton, my assumption is that that with the parameters of this year's budget, which would include things like our fund balances to revenue ratio of the 25%, our expense to revenue ratio, which is a balanced budget, is even, and then some of the other characteristics that the state uses to do financial assessment, like days cash on hold and are on hand, and percent of long-term debt and short-term and so forth, that with the implementation of and the approval of this budget, that is your expectation that 205 would remain on the financial recognition category of the state rankings. Is that accurate?
It is accurate. We, for this year, for 9-10, we again scored a 3.8, so we are in fine shape in terms of that. And I would expect, since we aren't going to be having any further debt, and we are paying down debt, and certainly with the balanced budget, there might be a little less days on hand, but there's still enough there that we're in relatively good shape as far as that's concerned.
I appreciate that, and that would be my expectation as well. And I think that's another form of external metric yardstick milestone that I think we all need to recognize. I pulled up some data. In fiscal 09 in the state of Illinois, there were 72% of school districts that were in the financial recognition, which meant there were 28% that are in the review, warning, or watch list. That percentage dropped from the 72% to 63% in this past fiscal year, so there again, 37%. That number is growing. And given all that we know about the state of state financing of education, continued challenging economic environment, and so forth, I think it's probable that the number of school districts across Illinois in the financial recognition category will continue to drop and slide into the review, warning, or watch list. And so, again, I think we should be proud, but it's not a status that we by any means can take for granted, especially as we move into this next cycle with the EPIRT process and the like, to figure out how we continue to tighten the belt and manage our expenses to deliver, yet again, another budget. So, again, thank you for that affirmation, and we'll count on you, Dr. Krizik, Ms. Master, and the entire staff to keep us in that sterling category.
Okay, I'm seeing no additional board discussion. Mrs. Walsh, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Davy? Yes. Ms. Conroy? Yes. Mrs. Droney is absent. Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Kalquist?
Yes.
Mrs. Osterchik?
Yes.
Ms. Hirsch?
Yes.
Thank you. 6 ayes, no nays, 1 absent. That motion carries. Our next item is upcoming meetings. We have a meeting scheduled Tuesday, October 12th. It's a Board of Education workshop meeting here in the District 205 Center. Excuse me, at 7:30. On Tuesday, October 26th, a Board of Education business meeting, 7:30 here, also at the District 205 Center. We also have a policy meeting currently scheduled for October 19th, and that is at 7 o'clock, and that is also here at the District 205 Center. Are there any board communications? Mrs. Davy?
I just wanted to report to my fellow board members that I attended LEND last Friday with other board members and superintendents in DuPage County, and the agenda was a forum with our local legislators from DuPage County, so state representatives that represent any part of DuPage County, as well as the state representatives, state senators, and we had someone from Roscom's office that was also able to come, as well as Darlene Rossetti. So it was a very informative forum. There are actually a few, I think, really concrete solutions to our $13 billion state deficit that were kind of thrown around as just possible solutions of ways that our state can begin to try to dig out of the massive deficit. And as we all know, that has a direct impact on education. So I felt good leaving that meeting knowing that there are important conversations going on down in Springfield, and that there's a great relationship between the DuPage County Regional Office of Education and our state legislators, because I think we have an important voice in what's going on as far as state funding for education. And I feel like the money we spend to be a member of LEND, which is really an insignificant amount, is certainly money well spent, because we are having a good representation. So I will continue to report as there are other information comes forward.
Mr. Kralquist.
Dr. Krizik, it's been pretty well, I think, communicated across the community about how the school district has taken initiative to have changes made in the ordinance around the use of the stadium, including the lights and the PA system, and you've been very clear about the district taking on the additional and greater responsibility for the action and compliance with the ordinance. As the zoning commission and others evaluate what changes are appropriate, clearly, the district, and I know the high school administration has been working very collaboratively to try to address the concerns of the neighbors and anyone who has expressed some concern. At the same time, I know, I've received quite a bit of interest from community members who are strongly, fervently in support of expanded use of that facility. We have limited resources here in the community in terms of athletic facilities. It's a high-quality facility. The lights provide even greater, use of that. And so I'm just wondering if you could comment, maybe an update on where that process is at. And then secondarily, I know there was some misunderstanding around some things that were communicated, which it doesn't do anyone any good to have, misunderstandings and rumors and such. So could you give the board and the public a little bit of an update on where we're at in that process? And in particular, for those who, the question that keeps being raised to me is, what can I do to be an advocate? I understand and I respect the interests of neighbors to want to have their interests considered as a part of the deliberative process, but what can I do as a community member to express my strong desire to see expanded accessibility of that facility?
Well, several things have happened. First, Mrs. Ostajic wrote a very great letter of support that we will be sending to the Zoning and Planning Commission as a follow-up to a suggestion that was made at the board table 2 weeks ago. So we have that. We have a community forum meeting planned for Thursday, this Thursday at York, at which time we intend to provide a variety of pieces of information, including how our programs have changed since 1986. How our student participation has changed since 1986. We'll also give some comparative information of other districts who have lighted fields, who also are in neighboring communities, those that live in towns that don't have ordinances or don't have restrictions, and what their utilization has been within their communities, as well as providing a variety of other pieces of information. Our goal is to help educate everyone about what the need is. And I think based on that, it would be then beneficial for individuals either to attend that meeting on Thursday to become informed. We'll certainly probably provide some follow-up communication as a result of that, and any handouts that we create as a result of that we'll make available so people can become informed. And the second thing is that, sometimes the only voices that are sometimes initially heard are those that are in opposition to something. I don't think at this point in time the Zoning and Planning Commission has heard very many voices of those that are in favor of a change. There's not been any balance there. So I certainly would encourage members of the community who are interested in ensuring that we optimize all of our facilities and give our students every opportunity to participate either in sports, band, extracurriculars, to either, write a letter in support of such a endeavor, and they can certainly send it to us, and we can add that with all of our artifacts that we will bring to the second part of the ordinance hearing scheduled for October 14th at 7:30 p.m. at City Hall. So that is what individuals can be proactive. I would recommend that they send those letters to us so we could put them with all of our artifacts. I want to just say that the members of the Zoning and Planning Commission were very respectful and run a very good meeting, and I want to honor the process that they have put in place. The third thing is that sometimes in any discourse at a board meeting, there can be a sentence or two that's taken out of context. And, I believe that local media's response has been responsive to acknowledging an out-of-context comment that particularly got a lot of the lacrosse families very upset. And I think that you as board members have been proactive when I provided you with information in terms of responding to those. And then even today I responded to some emails that I had received while I was away for a few days. And what I had intended, my intention at our last board meeting was to really kind of foreshadow and outline what some of the unintended consequences would be should the ordinance not be approved. We operate on a calendar year. We will have technically used our 12th light usage at the end of the regular football season. I'm going to say the regular football season. We've got a highly successful football team thus far. I think they're 4-0 at the moment. So at this moment, I guess I'm concerned about, postseason play too, and our options may only be on Saturdays at this moment in time. I don't know that is our only option, but under the current ordinance, that is one of the options that we have available to us. So I do believe it is important to always hear things that are in context, but I really want to thank you as board members for sending some of those questions to me so that we can immediately provide clarity. I also want to thank Malia Smith for going into the audio and actually, having my words transcribed to be able to give you the information. You could respond to community members who believed, as the superintendent, I said something completely different than what I said. So I think we're moving forward, and I believe there might be a retraction of that comment that was reported. And so I think that's a positive direction. Again, we are looking forward to a good exchange of information. I do want to just reemphasize the ordinance currently is primarily about light usage. That's really what that was about, was light usage. It had nothing to do with how we operate our schools during the day, how we utilize all of our facilities, where we have the kids have PE class, where we have band practice. It wasn't about any of those pieces. It was purely about the light usage. And I think we'd really want to continue to ensure that as a school district and as a school entity, we do have the rights to kind of operate within a lot of parameters, how to utilize our facilities. Where the baseball team practices, where the soccer team practices, where band practices. I don't believe there is any ordinance that we are subject to that would be restricting our utilization of how we optimize all of our facilities when there is no utilization of lights or no utilization of the PA system. And so I hope we can bring some clarity and understanding to that at the upcoming meeting on Thursday, and then hopefully be able to articulate that in very clear and concise ways to the members of the Zoning and Planning Commission.
Dr. Krizik, can I just ask one clarifying question? You talked about the meeting scheduled for Thursday night at York High School. What is your expected outcome from that? Obviously, it'll be a good opportunity to be informational. Is that, as far as the input from the community, is that anticipated on being an input? Are we going to transcribe the comments and make that part of the package? I mean, how are we looking to address the comments that come from that meeting?
Well, we're looking to share with everyone what a tentative revised proposal is going to be to the city of Elmhurst, share what our original proposal was and what we're looking at forward. It's primarily an educational process. And I think that everyone can ask really good questions and make good comments when you first have the information. So the goal is to first have a presentation. I think we will take those comments and utilize those comments as we reframe and potentially send forward information to the Zoning and Planning Commission before the October 14th meeting. Mr. Hsu is also in the process of also getting some ballpark information on really what the cost of changing out the lights would be at the stadium as well. We'll have a ballpark figure for the September 30th meeting, but going forward at the October 14th meeting, we'll have a more exact figure. Not that we have the resources for this. and maybe we will allocate the resources for this. But our intent is to gather as much information that was asked of us at the Zoning and Planning Commission meeting, so that they can make the most informed decision and we know what all of our options are. We are certainly interested in getting feedback to what we are proposing. I think that's really critical to have kind of that discourse, that dialogue. I don't know that we intend to verbatim all of the feedback, but we took really good notes at the ordinance hearing and we'll take really good notes at this meeting. And I think based on those notes, it did help us shape just a little bit about some of the changes that we were going to be proposing in our revised submission. The good news is that we are technically asking slightly for less. I don't want to say I've asked for the world, but I asked for more than maybe what we needed. In anticipation of not knowing what the future held. I don't think we want to be going forth to the Zoning and Planning Commission on a regular basis. I certainly wouldn't wish that on anyone, really. But so I think I just wanted to be as proactive as possible. Maybe we can refine that just a little bit. That gives flexibility for the expansion of our programs as well as for the operation of existing programs.
Thank you. Any other board communications? Mrs. Conroy?
I'd just like to say that I'm pleased that Mrs. Cartwright feels comfortable asserting her First Amendment rights at our meeting. She has every right to that. What I would like to do is publicly assure her that her email address came directly from my personal address book. I often receive emails from Ms. Cartwright. As recently as last week, I received a mass email about her strong political views. I am very happy to remove her from my personal email and would request she do the same for me. Thank you.
Dr. Krizik, just an administrative question. Mrs. Cartwright thought that there were several times when maybe the PTA, so that is something that within all the schools, they all have policies and procedures, so is that something that we could just reiterate to the PTAs? She talked about over the past 3 years, different experiences where she thought that had occurred.
There's an upcoming PTA council meeting on the first Tuesday in October, and as a superintendent, I provide a monthly update. I will put in my monthly updated narrative that all PTA presidents and PTA council members read, just a reminder of what that directory is for and what it is not for, and how they subject themselves to risk when they potentially use or their members use the directory for purposes other than what it was intended, and that is an internal school communication vehicle. So without casting any judgments about how people had used it or not used it before, based on comments we heard tonight, a reminder and a reinforcement of I think that is timely, so I think it's appropriate.
Thank you. We have reached the end of our agenda, so I'd like to thank anybody who attended the meeting tonight or is going to watch it or listen to it or read it in the different venues available. And with that, I will accept a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mrs. Conroy. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Hirsch. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.